You just got the email. The annual performance review went well.
And there it is, a $10,000 raise. Maybe you finally landed that new job that pays $2,000 more a month.
For about 48 hours, you feel like a king.
You start browsing for that car upgrade.
You book a slightly nicer vacation. Maybe you finally start ordering the appetizers at dinner, without checking the price first.
But then, 6 months pass.
You look at your bank account on a Tuesday morning, and you realize something terrifying. You're still living paycheck to paycheck. You're making $8,000 a month now instead of $6,000. The stress is exactly the same. The buffer you promised yourself you'd build is non-existent. You look around your apartment and realize you've fallen into the most expensive trap in the world. Lifestyle creep. You aren't getting richer. You're just getting more expensive to maintain.
Look, here's the thing.
If your expenses grow at the same rate as your income, you aren't an investor. You're just a highly paid consumer. You are running on a treadmill that keeps getting faster, and the moment you stop running, you fall off.
Today, we're stopping the treadmill. My name is Ash, and I spend way too much time thinking about the 50% challenge.
If you're someone who loves challenging yourself, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. The 50 challenge isn't about deprivation. It's about a radical shift in how you view your earnings. It's the strategy of living on exactly one paycheck while earning two more accurately.
Living on 50% of your take-home pay regardless of how much you make.
I know what you're thinking. Ash, I live in New York.
I live in LA. My rent is already 40% of my income. This is impossible. Actually, it's not. But it requires you to challenge every single assumption you have about what a normal life looks like. The psychology of Parkinson's law.
Let's talk about why this is so hard.
There's a concept called Parkinson's law.
Originally, it meant that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. But in finance, it's even more brutal. Expenses rise to meet income. Think back to when you were in college,
or your first entry-level job. You were probably making $30,000 or $40,000 a year.
You survived. You ate ramen. You had 3 roommates. And you walked everywhere. Now, you make $90,000. Do you feel 3 times as wealthy?
Probably not. You probably feel more squeezed. Here's what most people don't realize.
Your brain is wired to seek social proof.
As soon as you earn more,
your brain says, I am now a person of this status, and a person of this status lives in this neighborhood and drives this use model. This is the hedonic treadmill. You get a hit of dopamine from the raise.
You spend to match the raise.
The dopamine fades, and you need another raise just to feel normal again. The 50% challenge is the only way to break the cycle. It forces you to disconnect your identity from your income. The eye-opening math of the gap. Let's look at the numbers.
Because this is where it gets really interesting. The average American household income in 2026 is roughly $80,000. After taxes, let's say you're taking home $5,000 a month.
Most people spend $4,900 of that.
They save $100.
That's a 2% savings rate. At a 2% savings rate,
you have to work for 62 years before you have enough to retire. 62 years. That's not a career.
That's a life sentence.
Now, let's look at the 50% challenge.
If you earn $10,000 a month, but you live like you still make $5,000, you are saving $5,000 every single month. If you invest that $5,000 into a total market index fund returning a conservative 7%.
In 5 years, you have $360,000. In 10 years, you have $865,000.
In 15 years, you have $1.5 million.
But here is most people miss.
When you save 50% of your income, you aren't just building wealth faster. You are also lowering the amount of money you need to retire. Think about it. If you are used to living on $10,000 a month, you need a $3 million portfolio to retire comfortably.
But if you have trained yourself to live on $5,000 a month,
you only need a $1.5 million portfolio. The 2-check strategy. Now, you might be thinking, Ash, I don't make $10,000 a month.
I make $4,000. I can't live on $2,000.
Look, I'm not saying you have to do this tomorrow. If you're at the poverty line, the 50% challenge is most powerful for the middle class trap. If you are a dual income household, maybe you and a partner, this is the ultimate cheat code. The Ghost Paycheck Method.
Here is how you actually execute it. You pick one person's paycheck, and that is your living paycheck. That covers rent, groceries, insurance, and the occasional movie.
The second paycheck, it's a ghost paycheck. It never touches your checking account.
It is auto-drafted into your brokerage or your high-yield savings account the second it hits.
You don't save what's left over at the end of the month.
Because, as we've established, there is never anything left over. You pay your future self first, and you force your present self to be creative with what remains. The psychology of loud budgeting. Why don't more people do this? Because it's socially awkward. We use our spending to communicate our success.
If you make $150,000 a year,
but you're driving a 10-year-old Toyota and living in a modest two-bedroom,
your neighbors think you're struggling.
This is where you need to adopt loud budgeting.
Loud budgeting is the 2026 trend of being vocally, unapologetically cheap for the sake of your future.
It's when your friends say, "Hey, we're all going to that 2-hour head on a case dinner."
And instead of making up an excuse or putting it on a credit card, you agreed. It sounds scary, but here's what happens. Half your friends will be inspired, and the other half,
the ones who are drowning in debt to look rich, will be jealous. You have to decide whose opinion you value more.
Your neighbors,
or your 50-year-old self who wants to be sipping coffee on a beach while everyone else is in a board meeting. The big rocks audit. To make the 50% challenge work,
you can't just skip lattes.
You have to tackle the big rocks.
If you want to live on 50%, you have to look at housing.
This is the deal breaker.
If your rent or mortgage is more than 25% of your total income, the 50% challenge is almost impossible. Transportation.
The average car payment is over $1,500. You're spending $1,500 plus a month just to move your body from point A to point B.
Sell the luxury SUV.
Buy the reliable sedan in cash.
The subscription shadow. Go through your bank statement.
Most people have 200,300 in ghost subscriptions. When you cut these three,
you aren't just saving money. You're reducing your fixed costs. High fixed costs are like a heavy backpack. Low fixed costs are like having wings.
When your cost of existence is low, your freedom is high.
A story of two paths. Let me tell you about a couple I know. Mark and Elena. Both were software engineers. Combined, they made $250,000. They lived in a high-rise in San Francisco, drove to Teslas, and went to every Coachella and Napa trip.
They saved about $1,000 a month. They felt successful, but they were one layoff away from disaster. Then, they decided to try the 50% challenge for 1 year.
They moved to a smaller, older apartment.
They sold one car.
They started hosting game nights instead of going to clubs.
It was hard for the first 3 months.
They felt like they were falling behind their peers.
But by month 12,
they had $125,000 in cash and investments. When the tech layoffs of 2025 hit,
Elena lost her job. For most people, that's a crisis. For them, it was a Tuesday. They were already used to living on one paycheck. Their lifestyle didn't have to change at all. Elena spent 6 months finding the perfect job, instead of taking the first thing that came along out of desperation. That is the power of the 50% challenge.
It's not about being a miser. It's about buying your own autonomy.
The 10% ramp.
Look, you don't have to go to 50% overnight.
That's like trying to run a marathon when you haven't walked around the block. Here is your actionable plan.
Step 1.
Calculate your current percentage. Take your total spending from last month and divide it by your total take-home pay.
Most of you are at 95% or 100%. Don't judge yourself. Just know the number.
Step 2. The 10% ramp. This month, aim to live on 90%. Take the 10% and move it to a separate account the day you get paid. Step 3. The raise rule. From this day forward, every time you get a raise, a bonus, or a tax refund, 50 of it is forbidden.
You can spend half the raise to improve your life,
but the other half goes straight to your ghost paycheck.
This allows you to enjoy your success while ensuring your wealth grows faster than your lifestyle.
The world wants you to spend, because a person with 0% savings is a person who has to say yes to their boss. They have to stay in the job they hate. They are easy to control. But a person who lives on one paycheck while earning two,
that person is dangerous. They can walk away from a toxic environment.
They can take risks. They can start the business they've always dreamed of. It's going to be hard, but I promise you, the feeling of looking at your bank account and knowing you are truly free is better than any car,
any dinner you could ever buy. Stop running on the treadmill. Start building the gap. See you in the next one.